Hey, this is Kristi Hust of Blissen, Natural Skincare and Cosmetics. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own natural and effective deodorant at home. So keep in mind that this is a deodorant, it's not an antiperspirant. So what that means is that this is not going to have aluminum in it, and aluminum is the main ingredient in antiperspirants, which actually prevents you from sweating. Now, we're supposed to sweat. It's our body's natural way of cooling off, regulating temperature, and excreting toxins. So sweating is an okay thing to do. And I'd rather do that than put the aluminum on my body. There's been a few studies that have suggested that it can cause certain types of cancer and even Alzheimer's dementia. So I'd rather avoid those things if at all possible. Now, the purpose of this deodorant, since it doesn't prevent sweating, the purpose is to absorb the moisture when you do sweat and also to neutralize any odors that would occur with normal sweating. Now, sweating in itself, it doesn't actually cause the smelliness. It's actually bacteria that causes the stink of the sweat. So in this recipe, we're going to use a few things to help out with that. Now, the first two ingredients I use to absorb moisture are completely natural products. They're actually food items. So those items are organic arrowroot powder. It's just a dry powder. And then also baking soda. And both of these are great for absorbing moisture. And you may have also heard of baking soda being used to neutralize odor. Some people will put a box in their refrigerator. I've heard of people sprinkling it in their stinky tennis shoes. So if that wasn't enough fun, today we're going to be putting it in our armpits. Pretty cool, huh? Now, the fun secret ingredient here that I'm using is probiotic capsules, actually. So if you're not as much of a science geek as I am, you may not know that probiotics are something you can take internally, and it actually it slows the overgrowth of unhealthy bacteria, and it increases the healthy bacteria in your gut. So what we're going to be doing is putting it in our deodorant because it actually helps to prevent the overgrowth of those normal stink-causing bacteria when you sweat, and it creates an environment that where it won't have as much smell when you do sweat. So it's kind of a tricky ingredient. It, in theory, it should prevent you from smelling as bad, but I haven't done any official armpit sniffing experiments to prove this, but it sounds good, so I like to put them in there. The base for this recipe is what I'm going to get to first. There's actually a few phases to this recipe, and we'll get started with the things that we have to melt. As you can see, I already have my hot water bath going here. I'm not going to use a double boiler for this today because it's a larger batch, but what I have is an old pot, and it has about 2 inches of water in there. I've already got it hot. You can see the steam going. And I'm just going to dunk my measuring cup right into the hot water bath. So what we have here, this is a 1/4 cup of organic yellow beeswax, and I'm just going to put that into our measuring cup here. I have about a 1/4 cup of cocoa butter. It's kind of hard to measure because it's really hard, but that's about a 1/4. I actually weigh my ingredients, and maybe I'll list the gram measurements for you if you have a scale that you want to use to measure. And then I have 1/3 cup of organic coconut oil. So I'll just scrape those into my measuring cup, and then we'll put it in the hot water bath and give it time to cool. Now when you're doing your hot water bath, you want the level of the water to come up fairly high on your measuring cup so that it can really heat the ingredients inside. But you have to be careful. You don't want water to get into your ingredients. So You want your level to be pretty accurate on there. So now, while we're waiting for that to melt, our phase 2 is mixing together the dry ingredients. So like I said before, we have our organic arrowroot powder. There's a half a cup of that. And then I have 2 tablespoons of baking soda here measured out. So I'm going to mix those together in my little bowl. And then here is our secret probiotic capsule ingredient here. I'm going to use 6 capsules for this. I already emptied 5 of them. That lighting isn't great for you to see, but I already emptied the powder out of 5, and then I'm going to show you actually how to do it with the 6th one. It's kind of tricky, so if you haven't looked closely at one of these capsules before, there's actually 2 ends to it, and they overlap in the middle to hold all the powder inside. So what you're going to do, the best way I found it anyway, is to twist the 2 in the opposite directions, and then gently pull it apart while twisting, and hopefully I can get this here without making a mess. And then you just empty it into your container there. And then I'm going to add that straight into my baking soda and arrowroot powder, and I'm going to mix that up here. Now that's going to take a little while to melt, so why don't I take a little break here, and I'll meet you back here when my wax and cocoa butter and oil are all melted. So I'll see you in a minute. All right, it looks like everything is melted here. I'm just going to take this out of our water bath, and then we're going to add our powdered ingredients that we had mixed up earlier, which is the arrowroot, the baking soda, and our probiotic capsules. So you can just add that right into your melted oils there. And then we'll have to mix it up really good, or it'll be a little clumpy. So you want to mix it until it's nice and smooth here. You see it? It's almost like we're baking here. I kind of feel like I'm cooking up something new and interesting every time I make a skincare or cosmetics recipe. It's kind of fun. Yeah, those clumps are a little stubborn, so I really want to smash them against the wall so they bust up. You don't want. And it's not a big deal, I guess, if you have clumps in it, but it won't look very nice. Which I guess for deodorant, doesn't matter if it looks too nice or not. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, at this point, I am going to put just a few drops of vitamin E oil in there. It's good for the skin, and it also keeps the oils fresh longer. So I like to use vitamin E in a lot of my oil-based products because I don't use a chemical preservative. So the vitamin E just prevents the oils from going rancid. And then I'm going to put 15 drops of orange essential oil in there. This is completely optional, but I love how it smells with the cocoa butter. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I don't know if you've ever had a box of chocolates with one of those orange-filled chocolates, but that's exactly what this smells like, and it's so delicious. Not that I'd want to eat it or lick it off anyone's armpits. Sorry, that was gross. All right, I've got this mixed up, and it's ready to pour in our containers. Now you want to use a clean, empty deodorant container. I got, I think, a pack of 5 of these off of Amazon. The recipe that I made today, it'll probably make about 3 of them. So let's see how close I am to my guest today. Let's go ahead and pour these in. This one. 2. Oh, pretty close to 3. I did good. All right. Now once these are poured, you want to let them cool at room temperature or in the fridge with their lid off. You don't want to put the lid on until they cool off. Because if you put it on while they're hot, you might have it condensate and have water droplets form on the lid, and then it could introduce bacteria. So avoid that if at all possible. So I'm going to let those sit here and cool. And one other thing to keep in mind is since this product does contain coconut oil, it might change texture or consistency a little bit. Coconut oil in its natural form is solid at room temperature, but it starts to melt around 76 degrees Fahrenheit. So if your house tends to be warmer than that, you might want to store this in the fridge. You don't have to. It's not going to melt completely because I do also have the solid beeswax in it, but it will soften up if it gets pretty warm. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, since I made 3, I like to store the ones that I'm not using in the fridge. It'll just keep them fresh a little bit longer. It's probably not necessary, but I like to just to be on the safe side. So that is it for our all-natural and effective deodorant recipe for today. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you liked us on YouTube and share on social media with your friends. And for more recipes and tips on natural skincare and cosmetics, feel free to visit blissennaturals.com. Thank you so much for watching today.